The iBreakfast has been around for years, and our job basically is to take the revolution that's generally being created by kids out of college, Mark Zuckerbergs of the world, and make it, and that's why it's a breakfast. We found that one of the things that college students don't like to do is show up for breakfast. So I have a droid right here, and I use it all the time. It gets more and more useful. But this started out as a horseless carriage. It started out as a critter that worked with my other critters. And one day you realize it's not a horseless carriage anymore. It's an automobile. It's a whole new kind of vehicle, and that's essentially what's taking place. I was involved in artificial intelligence back in the day, and I can tell you that voice recognition used to be a huge, huge deal. It works incredibly well here. Somebody forgot to tell the world. So we're discovering features, and so the purpose of this breakfast is to try to understand from 4 different directions, and our fourth speaker will show up shortly, what that really means in big corporations and also in smaller corporations. Where are the openings? Where are the possibilities? I was walking down the street the other day and I saw Jackie Mason standing outside a restaurant having a chat with some people. So I took out the thing, I don't know what to do, and I took a picture of him. And I said, Jackie, I just saw your show. You're very funny. Thank you very much. And he made some wisecrack, and I was trying to think of, I got to get an autograph. And I don't know, what do you sign on a smartphone? I don't know. I said, Jackie, could you sign on the screen? I don't know. And then after I left, it dawned on me, this guy made a joke. He was waiting for someone, whatever, it was a long story. I could have videotaped it. Now, the picture I took, I shared with all my friends. So I pulled in to make sure, and of course I realized there's alternate side of the street parking, and I shouldn't be there. And somebody walked up to me and said, oh, did they suspend alternate side of the street parking today? I heard there was a storm. I go, I don't know here, but I don't know. So I picked up my Android phone, and I spoke into it. Alternate side of the street parking today, and sure, it pops out the city's website and says, yes, it was suspended a half hour ago. And this woman thought I was like, I dropped in from Mars, talking to this device. But the point is this, it struck me very quickly, it's like, wow, that could completely change the way parking is done, because that would have been in that area and it could have told me. Now, why is it important? Well, think about it this way. How many people use the navigation to figure out where the subway is, how to get, you read about these clean cities opening up. There's one that they just built in Abu Dhabi, and the little area that I got into, clean cities. If you look at how that works, it's fundamentally based upon quick information. If you don't have the quick information, those cities don't work. So I would argue that what you're seeing here enables all of these possibilities that really didn't work without instant information and sort of location. The other thing I'll tell you real quick, in terms of my device, because this is something I hadn't thought of. I was walking down the street the other day. So the setup for our next speaker here is changing the guard. I just want to say that I think last year we had a speaker from a company that's reinventing textbooks for college. And how long before we see the end of textbooks and college students are just going to show up with some type of netbook, and the publishers are going to be fighting to give you that book for free as long as the first book that you get to read is theirs. So I would argue that that's pretty much what you're going to see. If you think about the subscription to the Wall Street Journal, no offense, that would pay for a netbook right there. So, what was that?
Fantasy is a different animal. Fantasy is, for the folks who don't know what fantasy football is, it's ability to kind of create your own football team and then compete with your peers and friends or people you don't even know all over the world. And so, in this particular case, people want data. And the way the iPad application was actually built, it is built so that you sit in front of the television set or at a sports bar and you can track all your players, the different teams that you have.
Living, useful role in their existence.
You indicated that the first step was to find out what the fans want. So what was the methodology to do that?
Okay, so again, if I'm using the CBS analogy, so CBS has been running fantasy in fact, we've been running CBS mobile fantasy for 3 years, and so we've seen a lot. It also helps to have people on your team who understand the service. This is very important from my business perspective. Have people on your team who understand those brands and those customers and those products and services, that when you engage in this brainstorming part of design, that you can add your knowledge or mobile knowledge to what they're trying to accomplish. And so work with a company also has that experience. So.
This raises a point, because if you're a retailer, wouldn't it be nice to be able, or you're a buyer of something, wouldn't it be nice to know before you sign the check for that new Ford Escape, to say, is there anything I should know about Ford Escape before I sign this thing? And they might say, yeah, there's this Kia thing, which is with you, it suddenly becomes useful, and you're going to use it differently, and you expect it to work differently. Okay, second question over here.
I think your comments about the difference between apps and the mobile web are really interesting. I was on an AT&T webcast yesterday, and they were saying be careful because HTML is kind of, the standards aren't there yet, the development there yet. You put a lot of bets down on it and it may not function the way you think it's going to function. Which leads to the question that Apple has always led the market in terms of innovation. It's had a small chunk, but it's been the leading edge chunk. And do you think that's going to continue in mobile, or do you think at this point the wave is going to overwhelm it?
Well, there's certainly always going to be a leader in innovation, always. Hard to, that's a tough one to predict, but you know, like I say, Android is going to be overtaking iPhone just in the sheer number of devices, choice of form factors, choice of carriers. Things could change if we see the iPhone on other carriers. I know a lot of people would,
Put your money on Android. Come on.
a lot of people would
I mean,
like
Google's
to
been
see
giving away stuff for 10 years. You think, what did Microsoft give you the last 10 years? Nothing. Forget about Microsoft, I don't have a chance. Okay? Apple's giving you nothing. It's a great place. It's a certain segment of the marketplace, okay? Maybe settle that. All right, I'll come to you, Jenny. Just in the back, I want to get a question in the back over there. Yeah, go ahead.
Jess, you mentioned earlier that Google has an app to help you mobilize your website. Were you talking about Google Mobilizer, or were you talking about something different?
Yeah, what's the name of that app?
Excuse me.
By the way, I just want to say before you answer, if a radio, TV show was telling you about HTML wasn't good enough, that's already, I mean, it's kind of interesting that would be part of the public debate. But it's irrelevant. I know, it's interesting that they would have that conversation, but go ahead. I'm sorry.
The tool that I'm referring to is our mobile landing page builder, and it's actually something that's available online. I need to get, and forgive me for mentioning it without having the URL at the tip of my tongue. It was actually, and this is a great Google story, there was a guy in sales who in his spare time identified this problem and built this mobile landing page building tool on top of another Google product called Google Sites, which you might be familiar with, which makes it really easy to build websites. And so it's kind of a product that's very rough around the edges, but absolutely works, and we use it all the time, and we give it to our clients. So I'm going to get the URL for you, and I'll give it to you.
Right, we'll share that with you. And by the way, that's information you didn't get on the 5 o'clock news. But I do want to point this out. Isn't it interesting that it's the sales guy who figured this out? That's exactly why you need to have the salespeople in on the conversation, because that's their job to find out what people's objections are.
So, being a sales guy, www.mojiva.com. You also have a nice, very rough around the edges landing page builder. We've had it for a long time. So it's very well drag and drop.
Is it free?
It's free. Free on mojiva.com. It's pretty good, actually. A lot of clients use it, and it's you can add images and video, click the call, the whole thing. It's pretty cool. So
We'll give you both choices. Okay. It's all right. We'll send it to you. Do you want to repeat that?
mojiva.com.
Just go to majiva.com and all your problems are over. Okay, okay, Jenny?
Yeah, my name's Jenny Walker. I'm here representing the Susan G. Komen for the Cure of Breast Cancer Organization. And I was just wondering how many of these, apps and programs that you're now developing have a charitable tie-in, because the chances of us having able to do this thing are very remote. But in terms of partnering with companies to help raise funds, I mean, what do you see in terms of that? Any tie-ins at all?
We've tried to do a couple of charitable applications, and it becomes somewhat sticky because if you push them through the App Store, like through the Apple App Store, they don't really allow charitable, applications to be in there if there's some payment component that's involved in this. You can't like make a payment through an application and then Apple try to rectify, did you actually share those dollars? I think the easy approach, a clean approach to take, would approach companies like ours, and there's a lot of companies who will build mobile webs to get you started, and make a case. Just make the case you'd like to do that. Depending on how complicated the applications of the mobile web services are, and a lot of the tools that are available, you probably can get one of them to help you.
Wouldn't a partial solution be a Facebook page where you can have causes is an easy way to make a donation to a charity through a Facebook page, and Facebook has a mobile application.
Sure, I'm sure you can go that route. There's a lot of tools out there that are very low cost as well, if not free, that can help get you started. And it's come a long way in terms of old mobile.
The idea is to move beyond, the idea is to move in the space where all the for-profit businesses are.
Sure.
I mean, that's the future of fundraising, it's the future of everything. So, of course we have the Facebook, but we have all of that, but that is not the same level as what we're
Right.
talking about here.
I think David has an answer for
Yeah.
that.
How much is it gonna cost? 100,000?
And by the way,
How much you raise the money to get it done?
well, there are people in that space, but go ahead, Dave.
Just see me afterwards if you want to do a pro bono ad campaign or something. We'll talk
See?
about it.
I rest my case.
Thank you.
Okay, go ahead.
I like this idea of the web being superior to apps for a lot of reasons, but it seems to me the big advantage apps have is persistence when you're disconnected and persistent caching. And does anybody see anything happening in mobile web HTML5 where you can run a web page offline and have some degree of persistent caching so that you can do things like do your Zagat search and get your reviews without having a connection if you've cached that stuff previously? But the web could do it too with persistent caching.
Right.
With the right
Maybe you want to
technology.
just repeat that question real quick. It's just basically, the advantage of an app is it continues working even after you've lost the connection.
Right, and the web can with the right technology.
Mhm. It's definitely something we're looking at. We're looking a lot at HTML5. I've seen some HTML5 demos that really look like apps. I mean, you're right, it's one of the big advantages of an app. There's other advantages too, app over mobile web that, I didn't mention. I mean, the fact is the client app can integrate with other software on the device. So in terms of functionality, if it's important to integrate with email, integrate with calendar, integrate with Google Maps, you can definitely offer a much more robust feature set with an app. But you're absolutely right, but that's one of the reasons we're looking very closely at HTML5 now. And then you have the possibility of what we call hybrid apps or shell apps, where there is a downloadable client, but in effect the app contains a mini browser. So it's the best of both worlds. Now you have to be a little careful with this because Apple is going to reject something that is nothing more than a browser shell. But if you can add a certain functionality on the client side. As a matter of fact, I mentioned we are launching today an SI fantasy football app that is in fact a hybrid app that we're launching on Android today.
There you go. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, my name is Bharat Ramani from Great Connection. What do you see, will mobile turn into a learning platform at some point in time?
Education. Learning platform. Yes.
So funny you should say that. I was just with the enterprise group yesterday in San Francisco discussing exactly that. So I think you're going to see, from the university perspective, I'm not sure. I have not spent the time there. It seemed to lend itself towards the universities, but I think from an enterprise perspective, it'll be one of the early mobile services you start to see within enterprises where where management teams, sales management can communicate with the sales force, or field technicians can be communicated back with their folks who are, these are the new parts that are available, here's how you fix that particular problem. So I think you'll see the enterprise segment make their kind of early moves into mobile in this kind of one-to-many training to their employees. In terms of universities, again, it just seems to be a natural, the demographic skews heavily towards, those types of individuals. So I think it's probably, you'll see more and more of this type of thing probably in the next 6 months.